get done in that time frame.
I wonder if he shares the same opinion as the other guy.
So I did try my best to do as much as I could.
With
so
Yasuke not being the highlight.
Only 4 hours. Now just some context before I get into it. My expectations going into this 4-hour preview event would probably be quite different compared to a lot of other people, who let's say went in with the expectation of wanting to play a great open world Assassin's Creed game, or just a great open world game in general.
Did Yasuke just fall from the rope, by the way?
Going into this 4-hour preview event would probably be quite different compared to a lot of other people.
Yeah. He can't parkour on ropes because he's too heavy. Yep. So actually, really just playing Yasuke just nerfs your parkouring, and obviously it makes sense because he's a big armor dude. But I didn't even know also ropes just break. Like you can't traverse across roofs like that. You're only going to be like playing on the ground and killing people through combat.
Who let's say went in with the expectation of wanting to play a great open world Assassin's Creed game, or just a great open world game in general. So in terms of the Assassin's Creed IP,
I'm glad he's not the parkour guy, because like he's a samurai. I mean, come on. Like to me he's not the main character. Obviously both of them are quote unquote main characters, but to me Naue is a freaking assassin. Like she's the main one we need to look at. The game's literally called Assassin's Creed, by the way.
I will be judging parts of it based on that, and I'll also be comparing a lot of things to past Assassin's Creed RPG games, and so my overall thoughts are quite positive, to be fair. Now I do have to note that the build I played on was a work in progress build, and it was not entirely representative of the final experience. This was also played through a remote desktop application, so the quality I saw was compressed, and the FPS was not what it would normally be, but hopefully the footage looks okay for you to see. Of course, when I have the full game in my hands, it's going to be 4K 60 plus FPS and just looking beautiful as ever, so bear all of that in mind. Anyway, as always, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you have not already. I literally just hit 100,000 subscribers a few days ago as I've been making this video. So
this guy is like one of the best Assassin's Creed content creators, by the way. I love him
so much for
like
that.
He makes a lot of great videos.
Look out for something special. So yeah, let's get into my early thoughts on Assassin's Creed Shadows. Now straight off the bat, in terms of the story, we were able to play the entire prologue in this preview event, but I'm not able to show or talk about what happens for spoiler purposes, of course.
Thanks, bro.
But what I will say, and I think I can say, is as far as introductions to a story go, it is easily one of the best this franchise has had to kick off a game. In fact, I'd even go as far as to say the prologue was one of the best I've ever played. It was well written, there was real emotion, and the mocap was easily the best this franchise has ever had. The details like pores and skin texture were next level. Honestly, I don't think the series has ever looked this good, but keep in mind that was just a prologue, and
that's a big thing coming from him, by the way. That's huge. Like, he's a no bullshitter.
No, Assassin's Creed prologues tend to be better than the actual story sometimes. Anyway, that's all I can say about that.
I haven't
Let's move on to the story itself without giving away any spoilers, of course. So after the prologue, the preview did a bit of a jump in the story, and it put us in Harima, which I think is
nice. I like these question marks here. This is exactly like Assassin's Creed Mirage. I'm glad they took elements from AC Mirage, like the texture of the map, the colors. It's like AC Mirage. And I really like Mirage, so I'm really happy about this.
Best regions in the game. At this point, we already teamed up with Yasuke, and the preview event basically lets us explore and do our thing. Story-wise, we were only able to do a quest related to a masked man named the Noble, and I'll be honest with you, there were moments in this questline that hooked me. Some pretty entertaining characters, and seeing some of the cutscenes, which were really well acted, had me interested. But at the same time, there were bits where it kind of felt like I was playing through an Assassin's Creed Odyssey inspired storyline. That said, I only got about an hour and a half of story time out of what's probably a 40 to 50 hour game, so it's just way too early to call it. It's like trying to judge a whole TV series based on the first episode of the first season. It's just not fair.
Thanks, Yoni. I'll check it out.
Context, the last time I thought Assassin's Creed
I love the way she runs with her sword out. She looks so cool.
Story was Origins 7 years ago. Before that, it was Assassin's Creed Black Flag 12 years ago. So yeah, story-wise, this franchise, in my opinion, has not really hit those highs in a while. I went into this preview event with low expectations, but based on what I played, there is real potential. I just wish I had more time to dive into it. But for now, that's all we got. Now, staying on the topic of the story, I do want to touch upon the dialogue and awesome mocap as well. As I already said, the prologue was top notch, and afterwards we skipped a lot of time to play in the region of Harima. Now the questline in Harima had dialogue that seemed well written, so I will give it its flowers in that regard. I did like the dialogue and the cutscene quality. Some of the characters we encountered looked incredible. The voice acting was very good, so no complaints in that regard. The hair details and hair physics were top notch, which actually surprised me quite a lot.
Looks really good. The cutscenes look great. Look at that hair.
It seemed improved upon since Origins, because if you know, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Valhalla and Mirage had some pretty terrible facial expressions in dialogue, but with Shadows it was a step up. Of course.
Good. I'm glad. And he's absolutely right, by the way. The characters in Odyssey, that they just look so scuffed. Even Mirage, by the way, and I'm actually a big fan of Mirage personally because of the gameplay and the stealth elements, but there was some parts in Mirage where the character literally, I'm not even kidding, they look like they're just staring at you blankly. There's no expression, nothing. So like there was a scene where Basim is like angry at Nahal and his face is just blank for like a few seconds. There are some moments in Mirage where there is a lot of facial expressions, and there's some moments where there's none. It feels like some parts have that, some parts don't. It's kind of odd that they make it that way. Yeah, it should just be the same facial like movement stuff. What I'm saying is it should stay consistent. If there's facial expressions all the time, it should be across the whole game, not just in some parts.
Of course, what you're seeing on screen is not even full mocap. It's just in-game cutscenes, and if we compare it to a Valhalla cutscene, I mean it's night and day.
Yeah.
My only downside is probably Naoe and Yasuke's own facial expressions during specific dialogue moments. It really gave off a soulless and lifeless vibe to it.
Yeah, when you have to like choose the dialogue option.
But then again, a few cutscenes later, it looks way better, so it's kind of confusing what's actually going on. To be fair, this is a big open world RPG game, so I'm sure the price of mocapping every single piece of dialogue would be astronomical.
I get it.
Ghost of Tsushima is in the exact same boat, where only important story moments were mocapped. Again, it's hard to talk about the story and dialogue without going into spoilers.
He's right, Ghost of Tsushima does have that.
I simply cannot explain this to you without spoiling the story. Spoilers. I mean, just take a look at this guy. I simply
just Naoe chasing a fucking naked dude.
Cannot explain this to you without spoiling the story.
I really want to see what's going on there when I play the story, let me tell you.
Now, I do want to touch upon character switching,
brother.
simply because this was something that a lot of people were curious about. I've seen people say, would it be like Grand Theft Auto 5, where they would switch characters and it's a bird's eye view from the top and it transitions into the other character. Well, let's just take away those Rockstar level expectations for just a second and settle down a bit. The character switching is pretty much nothing special.
Yeah, it's probably going to be just like Syndicate. I mean, the people that made Shadows, by the way, they're the people that also made Syndicate. And in Syndicate, you just swap your character and you're exactly where you are. It's not going to be like GTA 5.
And I know that is quite disappointing. So pretty much you just go into your inventory and switch Naoe, and a loading
it's going to be exactly like Syndicate.
Voila. Honestly, it is a bit of a letdown that they did not do anything new.
I'm telling you, I do not give a fuck about Yasuke. I'm never going to character switch to him. Like I said earlier, like I'll try him for like maybe a minute. Okay, 1 minute, I'm back to Naoe. That's it. Why the hell would I play him? He can't even parkour.
Or innovative with this feature. If
no,
anything,
it don't.
It's exactly like how it worked 9 years ago in Assassin's Creed Syndicate. Maybe even less impressive, because at least in Syndicate, you'd see Evie or Jacob hanging out on the train when you switch characters. There was also the option to fast travel to a previously synchronized viewpoint and choose the other character, but that's pretty much the extent of it. Do note though, again, I only got to play about 4 hours, so maybe there's more to it later on. But from what I saw, it's just a very basic feature. The one nice thing though is that you can switch characters during a quest. For example, if you're playing as Yasuke and you finish a conversation where somebody tells you to investigate a spot, you can simply switch to Naoe and she'll take over from there. One thing to keep in mind,
the dialogue
you cannot
continues.
switch characters during combat, which is pretty self-explanatory. So, you know, don't go...
Switching characters mid-combat would be the biggest L ever, so I'm glad that's not the case. Yeah, like you shouldn't be able to do that. And imagine like you restore your health back to full by switching a character and like your cooldowns are different and everything. Yeah, this is good.
To a fight thinking you can
have to be
character,
like
because that's not how it
anonymous.
Works. You can also approach your viewpoints with Yasuke and he will say this.
Naoe could reach the top of that pagoda if she wanted a challenge.
And then we just switch to Naoe to synchronize the viewpoint.
Yeah.
Overall,
he has to take the stairs. He has to go inside the building and take the stairs. Naoe can just grapple hook her way all the way up.
Character switching is functional, but you know, it's nothing innovative or groundbreaking. It's just a very simple
She's the
feature
climber.
implemented into the game.
She's the assassin. I really like that.
Something I found quite interesting when I was playing through the preview event was to do with the map size. I'm sure we've all seen what the map looks like based on promotional images and the recent exploration article going over in depth, but I was very surprised when experiencing it myself, because when looking at the map UI, it seems smaller than it is on screen, but that is not the case. It's actually quite big. I would guess that the map size in Assassin's Creed Shadows is slightly bigger than Origins, which I don't mind at all. The thing with Origins map is that while it was incredible, a lot of it was just desert, which made sense for the time period. So with Assassin's Creed Shadows having a similar map size, I'm really hoping there's more to see and do.
That's good. The map is large. I'm happy with this.
Play the full game. Now do note that there was a border when I was trying to leave the Harima region.
Yeah, probably because you have the early access of the game.
So we were restricted to only that part of the game world.
Yeah.
So if you were hoping I'd travel across the map and show off all the environments, side quests, hideout and a lot more, unfortunately that just wasn't possible. Something I was able to discover during my 4 hours was painting with Yasuke and Naoe, where you can spot animals and paint them, which provided no gameplay value but were peaceful nonetheless.
That's
there were
cool.
shrines you could pray to. There were temples to
That's like
discover and
Hikari.
rewards, which I'll go over later on. And there were way more things that I couldn't get
From
to.
Tsushima.
In terms of side quests, well, I didn't do any because remember, there was a border that restricted me from going outside a certain area. So again, I needed more than 4 hours to fully explore this game. But I did see some exclamation marks scattered across the map, and they do seem to be side quests, or rather something important given the context of how scattered they are. One thing that you can do in this game is swim, of course.
Nice.
Both Yasuke and Naoe can swim on water and underwater. I wasn't really a fan of how they kind of reused Valhalla's motions, which kind of felt cheap, especially with how fast both Naoe and Yasuke can swim, which seems exaggerated as hell. I also explored the safe houses, or as they're known in Japanese, kakorega, which are scattered across the cities. I did talk about these in my exploration article video, but they are actually pretty cool. You can manage your recruits. I'll talk more about that when I cover combat. You can access your storage. You can browse contracts, which are similar to Odyssey, where you do tasks for loot and resources, and you can refill your supplies. But just don't confuse these safe houses with the main hideout, which was not accessible during the preview. On top of that, there were vendors in the city who specialize in things like ornaments, gear, port trading and other stuff. Now let's talk about the atmosphere in this.
Oh, that armor looks so good, by the way. Oh my god. Looks beautiful.
This game, because the atmosphere really impressed me. Some of the environments look incredible. Even though I was playing it to a compressed remote application in 1080p, it still looked amazing. The forests are super dense, like seriously very dense. The rain is heavy, and I'm pretty sure ray tracing was on automatically because the puddles were reflecting beautifully. The wind was intense and actually worked well with the cloth physics, which
the game
is
is gorgeous.
that Assassin's Creed fails to do.
God, look at that, man. I would love to just be able to go in game and sit up here and just enjoy the view and the ambience and the wind and the rain and this is why I love this shit, bro.
Well, the port side of Harima was beautiful,
looks so cool,
especially during the day.
Ninjas,
one random thing I liked was how guards would tell you to put away your weapon, and I guess it's up to you if you want to listen.
It's like Skyrim. The guards like tell you shit and then you can like beef with them.
Oh, and you can pet cats, so that's good to know.
Yeah, they brought back petting cats, bro. No way. Yeah, you could do that in Mirage. Now you can do it in AC Shadows. I'm happy about this. You should be able to do it. In AC3, you could pet dogs, but not cats. But here, now you can do with cats.
I guess.
That's nice. That's cute.
Now, when it comes to the inventory and gear side of things, I do think this new system will be appreciated by a lot of people. Damn. But for those who are big fans of RPG games and prefer more quantity over quality for some strange reason,
there are dogs too, Pog,
then it may be a bit of a downgrade to you, but I like it. First of all, the inventory has been revamped quite a bit. The UI and layout are totally different from any Assassin's Creed game we've seen before. But you can definitely spot some inspiration from Assassin's Creed Odyssey here. For example, you can view both Naoe and Yasuke's inventory, kind of like how it worked in Syndicate. You've got your primary and secondary weapons, plus a slot for your horse. So yes, each character gets their own horse.
Looks pretty organized.
It does make sense. And I like how the horses have a bit of a backstory to them. Little details like that are always appreciated. Then there's your headgear, your armor, and a trinket/amulet slot.
Even the horses have lore.
Acts as an accessory to give you further benefits in terms of stats, and you can buy them at vendors. For Yasuke's weapons, if you've been following the game's development, you'll already know what he can wield. There's the long katana,
like they kind of pulls out the sword,
the kanabo, the bow, and the teppo. You can mix it.
I don't care about any of this stuff with him. Like, I'm gonna be honest.
Up however you want, melee and ranged, or even dual melee weapons. It's all based on your playstyle, which I think is pretty cool. And there is a decent variety too. Out of all of his weapons, my favorite one that I used in this preview event was the naginata, as it felt the most balanced. And for Naoi's weapon, she has the katana, which is her signature weapon, the kusarigama, which is the chain sickle.
That's the
and
main weapon for
tanto
me.
combined with the hidden blade.
Yeah, hidden blade tanto. Oh man, that's so fucking sick. Look at the way she like pulled out the hidden blade there.
Signature weapon, the
She's so badass.
kusarigama, which is the chain sickle, and the tanto combined with the
Look at the way she holds it.
hidden blade.
Whoosh. God, what a cool picture. So fucking cool. I'm screenshotting it. Looks beautiful. Really nice dagger as well. So cool. Like, I bet in combat, like, you can like stab and then execute with hidden blade or something. Awesome.
Now the RPG side of things, oh boy, weapons come in different rarities, which is pretty standard for RPGs as we know. But here's what I like.
I like the mask with the hoodie.
Like Assassin's Creed Odyssey was, where you were completely flooded in gear. The weapons feel more intentional and handcrafted this time. One thing I do want to point out though is the weapon stats. They've gone full RPG here, with stuff like DPS, posture damage, ability damage, and...
I'm fine with this. Like, I've kind of just accepted that AC headed in that direction. Totally fine with it. I've got used to it since Assassin's Creed Origins. Like, it's fine for me, like damage numbers being shown, like how strong this thing is, how much crit, and like perks. I mean, Ghost of Tsushima has you know, customizability with gear loadout and everything, so like I'm fine with the idea of it. Like, I think it's totally good.
Percentages. I can see hardcore RPG fans loving this, but I also know some people that might find it a bit too much. Just
I get that.
To keep in mind. What's cool is
it's not like classic Assassin's Creed like it was back in like AC1, AC2. Like AC2 had some customizability, like you buy a sword that's like 5 diamonds instead of 4 diamonds and it's stronger. But like that's it. It's like very basic. But here there's like more details. Like there's actually different systems here, you know, like ability damage, adrenaline, dodge, you know, perks, basically. Some weapons have perks.
Is that every weapon has its own unique ability.
It's more deeper. I'm actually fine with this.
And armor too. They all come with different stats and passive abilities.
That's fine.
For example,
that's good.
For one of Naoi's katanas, she has an ability where she can create an AoE effect when attacking enemies right after dodging. And since this was a preview event, we did not get to experience the hideout. So as you can see here, you can get perks for your weapons, but of course that requires upgrading your forge at the hideout. So pretty much reminiscent of the system in Ravensthorpe in Valhalla. I do hope it's way more expanded upon than Ravensthorpe though. So yeah, overall, there's a lot of depth for the inventory. It's a perfect mix of simplicity, but also it still has that depth to it in certain areas, such as percentages and abilities.
Combat. Let's see it.
Now let's talk about what I think is the highlight of this entire 4-hour preview, and that is the combat system, which is pretty important in these types of games. Now before I give you my thoughts, I've got to say, I've always felt that Assassin's Creed combat has been one of the weaker aspects in the franchise.
There's never
really been a system that really blows you away or makes you want to master every mechanic.
Yeah,
but
the combat in Assassin's Creed games in general, they're like the last resort for me. A lot of the time, I'm going to use stealth. I'm going to hide in the bush. I'm going to lurk around. I'm going to use my tools, smoke bomb, kunai, all that stuff. I'm going to be using those things. That's how I play Assassin's Creed. But that's how I play. I know some people, they don't play that way. But that's how I play. It's just my style. In Assassin's Creed 3, it probably had one of the best combat systems. And Assassin's Creed Brotherhood probably was the most fun. Yeah, Brotherhood probably had the most fun combat. But then again, like, it was pretty simplistic, but it was so addicting because the animations were so good in Brotherhood, so good. So I'd probably say Brotherhood had the best combat.
You genuinely believe with Assassin's Creed Shadows that changes. This is easily the most player-focused, unforgiving, and skill-based, believe it or not, combat system in the series by far.
That's good.
Yes, it doesn't really say much when you look at the other games in the franchise. When I was fighting enemies in this game,
that's good to hear.
I noticed that there was no more mashing buttons and expecting to breeze through fights like you could in the other games.
Yeah, you actually need to parry and dodge now.
This one actually requires skill for once, and I love it. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not on the level of a Souls game or anything like that. But for an Assassin's Creed game, it is definitely more intense than what the franchise is used to. So when Ubisoft said they were not going to hold your hand with this game, they were not exaggerating. Now they
probably sound like boomer, but to me, AC gameplay is and will always be the combat of the first few AC before the Omega changes. AC gameplay will always be the combat. I didn't understand what you said there. What do you mean? Will always be the combat of the first few AC before the Omega changes. Yeah, sorry, I didn't understand.
The game does give you a pretty easy to follow tutorial for all things, so it's not like...
Yeah, it's like very simple, Vin. It's very simple. Like you point your mouse or joystick at the target, you hit, There is 3 different guard types. There's the low geared person, light armor. There's the mid armor, and then there's the heavy dude. And the heavy dude, you have to like use different methods of attacking him. Like there were NPC types. Like you did have enemy types. The heavy guy, the mid guy, you know, and you played differently. In Syndicate, you had like one guy that would constantly grab you, and it was annoying. He wore like a top hat, and you had to knock him down. Like your attacks would miss against him, so you have to like knock him on his ass and then stab him. That was actually Unity, sorry, not Syndicate. In Syndicate, there was a top hat guy. You had to like knock him down with a spear. That's like the counter to him. You play spear, you knock him on his ass, and then you stab him in the stomach, and then he dies. But if you use like other weapons, he just dodges everything. So I mean, like there were some things, but they were very basic. I think AC Shadows is gonna evolve more on that, which is good. I'm actually happy to hear that. But I'm still gonna play stealth, you know what I mean?
Like they expect you to do everything at once. A lot of what I experienced in my preview was not as straightforward as I expected. You really have to think about parrying, dodging, and so on. And that adds a whole new layer to a franchise that most of the time is lacking in combat. It's definitely a step up from what we've seen before. Now with that in mind, I want to talk about Naoe's combat first. So you know how the game presents Naoe as the stealth-focused character and Yasuke as the combat-focused character?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that means literally what they say. The difference in combat between Naoe and Yasuke is so noticeable, especially against the big enemies. You would often at times easily get 1 or 2 hit by big brute-type enemies, and they can also...
Yeah, you get punished for combat with Naoe against the big dudes. It makes sense because she's light and they're heavy, so... Obviously, Yasuke would have an advantage there. But her advantage is stealth, and if you play around that playstyle, you're good. So I actually prefer doing that.
Also shrug off her attacks quite easily.
It just depends on your playstyle.
Damage as Yasuke would, which is self-explanatory. I've always been somebody that said I'd play with now 1 or 2 hit by big brute type enemies.
I like the way she holds her sword.
You would often at times easily get 1 or...
Look at the way she holds her sword like that. She's so... God, she's so fucking cool.
2 hit by big
I just love the idea of this.
Her attacks quite easily, and she doesn't
the way she carries herself
would, which is self-explanatory. I've always been somebody that said I'd play with Naoe all the time because she seems more fun. But during this preview event and the 4
yeah, it is the coolest way. Like she does that so much, like the way she holds the sword.
I started having second
and the dagger too. Look at the way she's holding it. God, I just love it. It's so badass. Like, she's so fucking cool, bro.
I realized just how important Yasuke is in this game for combat. The only big difference is Naoe is a lot more fast and can very easily dodge out of attacks, whereas Yasuke, he's slower but deals a lot more damage. Another issue for Naoe is damage output. It did feel like enemies were very tanky, but not to the point where it was damage spongy and gimmicky. Instead, these enemies will parry, dodge, and block a lot more, and they feel way more responsive, and that applies to any enemy, not just the harder ones. Now, I played through the preview event on normal difficulty, and the enemies were very responsive, so just imagine it in nightmare difficulty or the hardest one. It will be a lot more of a challenge.
Yeah, for sure.
Ubisoft AI in enemies and NPCs are very lackluster, and that's been a thing for a long time. But you can tell the work has been put in for this game. A lot of past Assassin's Creed games would have groups attacking you one by one, and they look kind of lazy in design, whereas when I was playing through this preview event, I noticed that enemies would not stand around, and instead a lot of the time they do come after you simultaneously, which I appreciate. Again, it really ties back to the whole no hand-holding approach with this game, and honestly I'm here for it.
That's good.
I do think I'm a fan of how they've implemented the armor breaking system for enemies. So instead you're not attacking enemies and their health goes down. First you would need to break down their armor.
Yeah, break armor, then they're burned through their health. That's good.
And then you can attack them. Of course, this only applies to the enemies with armor on, and then they would get stunned shortly after and gives you the perfect window of opportunity to get some hits in. This feels more realistic, and it's a welcome change that is definitely needed. Now, you
notice the gauge at the bottom left? It feels like Resolve from Ghost of Tsushima. There's like yellow diamonds. That must be like...
interesting thing that I noticed
must be something
is how
similar.
enemies can pick up things from the floor and toss them at you, which I thought was kind of funny. Kusarigama combat was probably my favorite weapon type so far from Naoe, as the AoE in her attacks help quite a lot.
Yeah,
especially because in this game you will get grouped on quite a lot.
Oh my god, there's so many.
I did have a lot of fun doing the hidden blade only combat or Tanto combat, which I am glad something like that returned for this.
Hidden blade combat is back. Confirmed. Yep.
Game. That is quite literally
we haven't seen that in forever.
Shinobi. Very fast and executing swift strikes with a small blade. Now, of course, I'll go into the abilities and upgrades quite.
Just for context, before you could always use the hidden blade for stealth only. You could never use it in combat. The coolest thing about AC Brotherhood was that you could counter attacks with Hidden Blade, but you had such a short time window to use a counter because it's a Hidden Blade. It's a very small weapon, but you had to time it so precise to like parry and insta kill someone. It literally, the Hidden Blade combat literally parried every single weapon, any mob type, but you just had to time it perfectly, the counter. That was the most fun part about Hidden Blade combat, is like if you use it well, you kill every mob type. Like if you use a sword against a big dude and you counter, sometimes the counter, it won't work. Like it depends on the mob type. That's the cool thing about the Hidden Blade. It literally just works against everything. You just have to be a pro gamer.
Soon. But moving on from Naoi's combat, I feel like Yasuke's combat was an insane difference, and insane in a good way. You know, when it comes to straight up raw combat against any type of enemy, Yasuke absolutely shits on Naoi. The whole phrase pick on somebody your own size applies perfectly for Yasuke, as there are quite a lot of enemies at Yasuke's size, which kind of surprised me. I do think Ubisoft slightly exaggerated the size of a lot of enemies in this game. But with Yasuke, his hits are more impactful, and he can wear down the health of enemies a lot more faster than Naoi. He can also tank a lot more hits, whereas with Naoi, she can literally get 1 or 2 hits. But Yasuke is a tank himself. Long katana is probably the most efficient type of weapon for Yasuke for combat, as it fits the samurai character perfectly.
Damn.
But that Nagi Nata is the one weapon that I loved using the most. It's the most balanced in my opinion. He does have the cannibal weapon, which is a 2-handed club, which
super
deals
combat.
a lot more damage, but the only downside with that is that it's very slow. One weapon I find very overpowered, and I don't think I'll be using it that much because it just doesn't feel like the right game for it, is Yasuke's Teppo rifle, which shoots pretty hard. It's just not my type of weapon in an Assassin's Creed game. But again, it goes back
I wouldn't play it either.
to mixing and matching different primary and secondary weapons. So yeah, forget about every other combat system in the RPG Assassin's Creed games, because Assassin's Creed Shadows absolutely shits on them all.
Damn.
Now let's go over something called Mastery, which is essentially the skill tree or ability tree, but with a different type of name. This was something that I hoped would be changed quite a lot compared to past Assassin's Creed RPG games, and thankfully it was. Now how this works is through something called knowledge. So in this game, the way you gain new skills is by obtaining knowledge points, which can be done through many different activities like progressing to the main story, the open world like completing temples, forts and so on. The more knowledge points that you gain, the more access you get to new knowledge ranks. So as you can see, Naoi's mastery is unique to her, and Yasuke's is unique to his. With Naoi, you have 6 different branches to work towards. Her katana has its own mastery, her kusaregama, her tanto, her tools, her shinobi side of her character, and the assassin side.
I wonder what the shinobi and assassin skill trees are going to look like. Probably something like to do with a hidden blade maybe, or like probably double assassinate. Like initially you're going to only be able to assassinate one target, and as you keep going in the skill tree you'll be able to like maybe dual assassinate or triple assassinate. I don't know if that's going to be a thing, or maybe, who knows, assassin focus. That would be fucking interesting if they add that in the game, like later on in the skill tree, because if you guys remember, or maybe you don't, Assassin's Creed Mirage had assassin focus, and you could focus multiple targets and instantly kill them from a distance. It was really cool. Like, you just fucking kill all of them instantly with your hidden blade. I don't know if they're going to add in this game. Probably not.
Of a character too. All of
I'm pretty sure he'd mention that.
Now since this is just an impressions video, I don't want to go over every single node and skill in this entire section, but instead just give my honest thoughts. Now I do like how streamlined this is. It's not at all complicated and a complete like whatever on earth Assassin's Creed Valhalla skill tree was, but it's more focused on catering to a specific playstyle that you want to go for. So for example, now his katana,
I'm going full stealth, like full stealth, full assassin.
Basically means her level with the weapon. You can increase the damage of her katana by certain percentages the more you rank up your knowledge. I do like that compared to other past Assassin's Creed RPG games, they don't bombard you with so many different abilities, all of which would be useless. But instead they focus on ones that seem impactful.
Yeah.
For example, this one.
It's good to make it simplistic. I think Black Myth Wukong did such a good job with this as well. Like Black Myth Wukong, it's not annoying. It's just like this unlocks this, and then you go down the tree. This kind of feels similar to Black Myth Wukong a little bit, like the way it looks.
Wave is a great skill I love to use in the preview. It pretty much is a very fast strike that does 25% ability damage, and it makes the enemy vulnerable. Aside from active abilities like that, there are passive ones too, such
Eviscerate.
as makes the enemy vulnerable. Aside from active abilities like
strike an enemy dealing 75% ability damage and pushing them away. Half as effective on large enemies. That's cool.
Like that, there are passive.
Quick strike. After any attack, momentarily pause Then press R1 or R2 to launch 2 extra strikes.
Ones too, such as being able to increase all melee weapons damage, a counter attack where you press RB or R1 after dodging, and there's even upgrades to active abilities. So for example, that tidal wave ability I just showed you, you can upgrade that to chain for
Whoa, wait, that's Ghost of Tsushima! Bro, that's literally Ghost of Tsushima attack.
active abilities. So for example, that
Yeah, this ability, by the way, this is literally in Ghost of Tsushima. You unlock it later on in the game. Where you can you enter this crazy cool samurai stance, but you can only use it after you get a certain amount of meter, and it was really cool. Looks like it's in this game as well.
I just showed you, you can upgrade that to chain for 2 attacks instead of 1. Basically, there's a lot to mess around with, and it's very impressive. Literally everything I just
You could do 3 strikes in Ghost of Tsushima. But maybe you unlock 3 here,
the
I
same
don't
for
know.
the Kusarigama and Tanto as well, with how they
Shadow
also
Barrage
have
is
unique
active,
active
increase all
abilities
damage.
and passive abilities too. I can
Shadow
see that a lot of people
Barrage.
will like the system quite a lot.
Yeah,
and I'm
this
just glad it's not
is awesome.
overwhelming
Absolutely
and messy
awesome.
like past Assassin's Creed RPG games. There is actually some thought process going on here. Now one last thing I want to touch on is, remember when they said everything in the cinematic trailer can be performed in the actual game? Well, they weren't wrong, because if you remember at the end of that cinematic trailer, Naoe did this super fast dodge and then did a strike, which looked pretty cool. Well, that ability in game I believe is called Shadow Barrage. And you can very quickly evade and get out of the way when getting hit. Pretty much identical to the trailer. Now
That's cool. All right.
in terms of Yasuke's mastery, it's also quite in depth like Naoe's, and it works the exact same way.
Very
except for his
fast
weapons
dodge.
Instead, I will not spoil all of the skills you can use, but just know there are some very insane looking ones. And dare I say, some that seem very inspired by Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Enemy and NPC
One
variety.
thing that really stood out to me during the preview and honestly surprised me quite a bit was the variety in enemies and NPCs. Now I wasn't expecting anything innovative, to be honest, but I didn't expect it to be this good. Take Assassin's Creed Odyssey for example. I don't know about you, but I remember almost every NPC and enemy looking pretty much the same. Maybe it was a development thing, or maybe Ubisoft just thought everybody in ancient Greece looked alike. Who knows? But in Assassin's Creed Shadows, the variety is on another level compared to the past Assassin's Creed games.
That's good.
Whether it was the big brute enemies, elite enemies, shinobis, guardians, regular foot soldiers, or even random NPCs walking around. They all feel more different and distinct. Of course, there are some repeats, that's just how RPGs are. It's impossible to make every single character in the game completely unique.
They're different enough that you won't recognize them, is what he's saying.
Compared to previous games, there's definitely more effort here, and I really appreciate the attention to detail. Even the outfits stand out. NPCs have their own unique looks, and you'll notice little touches in their behavior too. Some of them interact with each other, others are sleeping on the ground, enemies sleep during the nights. You'll even see interactions like NPCs crying because their wagon crashed, and there are kids running around, pets, and it's just more diverse overall.
Nice. Nice.
Level of crowd density as Unity, because this is not a dense city setting. It's feudal Japan.
Look at the way she's running with her dagger behind and the hidden blade out. God.
With an open world. But for
So
what it is,
badass.
it feels like a proper next-gen experience. And honestly, after playing the preview, I understand why they were not releasing it on PlayStation 4 or Xbox One. This game just has those level of details that consoles like that would not be able to handle well. Of course, Unity
Oh my
was able
god, he just kicked the fucking NPC and killed him.
to, but you know, we know how that turned out. I do want to touch upon some of the types of enemies I noticed, such as elites and guardians, because my god, these guys are literal giants. They are hard to take down depending on your difficulty, and their attacks hit very hard. They dodge to perfection, they parry, and their AI is just smart for once. So yeah, I do think Ubisoft cooked in terms of this aspect.
Shinobi recruits.
Now let's go over Shinobi recruits, which are basically recruits similar to Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, Assassin's Creed 3, and maybe Assassin's Creed Odyssey with that recruit system too. Well, since we only had 4 hours of playtime in this preview, we couldn't fully take advantage of this system, or get a very good understanding of it. However, there are 2 Shinobi recruits named Yaya and Yagaro, who you can call into combat, and I was surprised. Yaya, the fat one, is quite efficient, and can hold his own. I mean, he was beating the living shit out of elite enemies with
just punching them.
Fists, which I thought was kind of funny but also strange, seeing as Naoe deals less damage with a blade. The other recruit I didn't get to use because I just forgot, but I can only assume he's just as good, as he's capable of taking out enemies who have 3 bars of health or less.
Okay, he can like finish off enemies. That's cool.
these recruits and unlock their passive abilities, which adds onto this system. Now, of course, since I assume Shinobi recruits will be story related or have their personal stories to them, they will not die, but instead once they reach low health, they will just pull back and run off into the distance. So yeah, I am looking forward to exploring the Shinobi system quite a lot more once the full game releases, because I can tell it will be quite in depth, especially considering there are 6 of them in the game.
Yeah, so you can have allies. I don't want to play with allies, but I mean, I don't know. I'll probably pick one for like that dude who kills people when they're low, in case like I don't finish someone off and then he just appears out of nowhere and stabs them.
Wrote names, backstories, and maybe personal stories to them. But again, 4 hours is all we had, so this feature couldn't be explored any more in depth.
Stealth. That's the key.
Now let's talk about
That's the most important part of AC, by the way, the stealth.
stealth, which is another feature just like combat that stands out in this game. In the 4 hours that I played, I did not get a ton of chances to dive into full-on stealth missions. There were maybe 1 or 2 moments, mostly in the prologue. But here's the good news.
Oh. Depending on who you mark, it shows numbers.
Stealth in this game works very well. The pro mechanic is super underrated, and I can see a lot of players pulling off some crazy stealth runs with it, especially when you're hiding in tall grass.
Right.
Oh, and for those wondering, yes, you can whistle to lure enemies. I know a lot of people were asking about that, so there you go. That said, the removal of
classic AC2 move is back.
social stealth, like blending into crowds, sitting on benches, and hiding in plain sight, is definitely a big loss. Those features made stealth feel more dynamic in the
Wait, what? Say again?
benches and hiding go. That said, the removal of social stealth, like
Damn, man. Why would they remove social stealth?
blending into crowds, sitting on benches, and hiding in plain sight, is definitely a big loss.
That's a massive loss. That's always been like AC's identity. Whatever. Assassin's Creed Mirage brought back social stealth, and AC Shadows removed social stealth. Like I don't know why we keep doing this. Like, just it's part of AC. You're a blade in the crowd. There's no reason to remove that. Unfortunately, it looks like it's removed. You can't sit on benches and like use it as a hiding spot. But at least now they did expand on stealth by the fact that you can use darkness and shadow. Like using light as a stealth tool, it's still upgraded in some ways, but removed some things. Yeah, I don't know why they like remove stuff like that. It doesn't make sense in feudal Japan because of population density at the time. Maybe, but the benches would be cool to keep though, at least. If we're not using the crowd, at least the benches. I mean, there is hiding spots like the hay, so that's still good. Like, sure, there's no benches where you can hide with civilians, and like it was considered a hiding spot, even if guards like walk by. Sitting on a bench where there's other civilians sitting there also makes you hidden. And it was really cool to do stuff like that, like use it as a, you know, blending in. But yeah, it looks like now it's strictly hiding spots, like hay bale, probably like the closets, and you can hide in them, like in AC Unity. They're probably gonna like add, I don't know if they're gonna add more, but I'm assuming it's just gonna be like standard hidden spots.
A lot of people were asking about that, so there you go. That said, the removal
I'm okay
of
with
social
it, like
stealth, like blending into crowds, sitting on benches, and hiding in plain sight, is definitely a big loss. Those features made stealth feel more dynamic in the older games. And
yeah,
I do think
they were dynamic actually. It was really, really cool being able to like hide in the crowd after being chased by guards, and they're like, where is he? Where did he go? And then you're just like the coolest shit. I was playing Assassin's Creed 1, and these guards were chasing me, and then I joined there's like a church, and these guys come out, they're wearing like, you know, the church clothes, and they're all dressed in white. And obviously Altair, you play him, he's also dressed in white. And so you blend in with them, and the guards just run by. They're like, where did he go? Where did he go? And you're just in there sitting like this. You're in there with them in the crowd. It's just cool doing stuff like that. It just adds to the assassin fantasy, being able to like blend in the crowd that way. That was like the cool thing about AC1 and AC2, is that you could just hide with the crowd. Because I mean, it's just so hard to find you because you're acting so normal. You're not running around. I don't know. It's fine though. Like I get it. But it was just a cool feature.
It's something that this game could have benefited from. Still, the tools that you're given for stealth are pretty solid. The smoke bomb is super handy, just toss one.
They
and
innovated on
turn
stealth
into
still,
ducks,
which is
letting you
fine.
pick them up one by one. The shuriken and throwing knives are great too, especially for breaking light sources. And
Yeah, look, the light stuff is really cool. Like, that's the first time in Assassin's Creed we see this, by the way. This is completely new. Like, using light as a tool for stealth is really cool.
out enemies from a distance. And yes, hiding in the shadows is a thing, and it works surprisingly
Yep,
well.
that's good.
I thought that it might be a bit clunky, but it was actually done really well in the preview I played. One thing I did notice was the level designers put a lot of explosive barrels around the place, because my god, you can dash a throwing knife at one and the explosion radius is so massive to the point where it can take out a group of enemies, all of which makes you remain hidden. That said, I did not get to experience stealth as much as I would have liked to in the 4-hour time frame. There wasn't really a ton of stealth opportunities. So I'll definitely need more time with the full game.
Yeah, see? Oh my god, you can actually do that. Okay, see, I told you. They were just gonna keep it strictly to, like, hiding spots. And you can hide inside doors like this. Like, you just fucking jumped in there.
Really see how it holds up.
That
That said,
jump.
I did not get to experience stealth as much as I would have liked to in the 4-hour time frame. There wasn't
like the
really a ton
grapple
of
hook.
stealth opportunities. So I'll definitely need more time with
Yeah, I love that. I love that you can actually hide like this. Also, it's really cool that she jumps, because this way there's no animation of, like, walking up to it and then going in. If there's a guard coming through that door, you want to be inside there instantly. So that's good. That's good. It's, like, speedy, you know? She should be fast. Yeah, that's still fine by me. Like, I still do like this. I think it's good. Yeah.
full game to really see how it holds up. But so far, it does seem quite functional.
Parkour, that's a big one. Parkour. It's not Assassin's Creed if it don't got parkour. That's the way it goes. Yep. That's the way it goes.
And then there is parkour. Oh boy, if you're expecting parkour at the same level as the
Nah,
older
it's not
games,
gonna
which are
be.
my favorite types of parkour, with consistent side ejects, back ejects, vaulting,
There's never gonna be the same parkour as the older ones. The older ones, you had so much control. The new one is really cool because of animations, though.
descending and stuff like that, then lower those expectations quite a lot.
That's this type of parkour is never coming back, by the way. It's never coming back. Basically, just to kind of explain it, the older Assassin's Creed games allowed you to parkour in every single direction, whereas some of the newer ones, it's like the game is scared that you're gonna fall, so they kind of take care of you, if that makes sense. If you try to fall down from here to here, for example, and you're an Assassin's Creed Syndicate, they will, like, tell you, are you sure you want to fall? And then you're like, confirm. Are you absolutely sure you want to fall? You're gonna take fall damage if you fall. And then you hold circle to, like, confirm, like, yes, I want to fucking fall. It would, like, really carry your hand when it came to, like, parkouring in Syndicate. It was better in Unity, by the way. Unity probably had the coolest fucking parkour ever. Like, best animations. The one part about AC Unity parkour was that the input lag of parkouring was so annoying. Whereas in AC2 in the older games, it had zero input lag. The parkour was instantaneous. You jump from here, it's instant. The one thing about Unity, again, input lag. But the animations made up for it. Like, you had some of the coolest... There's, like, so many videos out there of AC Unity parkour. It's actually insane. It looks really good. Yeah, AC3 was really good, Luppy. AC3 was really good. I loved Connor a lot.
Parkour in Assassin's Creed Shadows is basically a better version of the RPG parkour style that we've experienced in the past 5 games. This game's focus is clearly on a big open world with spaced out buildings, especially in the cities.
Like, to be fair, that looks really fucking cool. That's good that it's an improvement, though. That parkour looks really fucking cool to me.
Stuff like that, then lower those expectations
That
quite
looks
a lot.
good. That looks good. I'm
Parkour
happy.
in Assassin's Creed Shadows is basically a better version of the RPG parkour style that we've experienced in the past 5 games.
And plus, you have the grapple hook. So you can have some really cool, like, parkour ways now. You can even grapple from one area to another across the rooftops.
This game's focus is clearly on
you can even use it to get to the high ground.
Buildings, especially in the cities. In the 4 hours I played, which was just the Harima region, there were pretty much no...
Yeah, so Yasuke, just so people know, he cannot parkour because he's a samurai. So if you play as Yasuke, look, like, he can't even grab up to here. He's just too heavy. He has a lot of armor. So he's not supposed to be the character that's able to do that. This is like a strictly combat character. So if you swap to him, just know you can't do this shit.
which was just the Harima region, there were pretty much no parkour routes. But
Yeah.
honestly, I kind of expected this.
Like, see here, he could, but the other one he can't. Like, he's very limited.
The franchise isn't about single city environments anymore, where you can parkour from one end to the other. From what I could test out, Yasuke is able to parkour, or rather climb and jump, but he's incredibly slow at it, like painfully slow.
Yeah.
It takes him 2 seconds to climb up something, but he struggles to reach certain ledges. And the funniest part, his weight actually breaks tight ropes.
Yeah, he can't go on ropes.
So he can't even walk across them. Now on top of that, he couldn't climb up some of the viewpoints to synchronize, so I had to switch to Nawe. And speaking of Nawe, she is much better at parkour. Well,
Yeah.
the RPG style of parkour.
She's ninja, so it should be like that. I mean, I do like that. It's like, there's obvious weaknesses and strengths between the two characters. Yasuke is really strong. She's really mobile. She's much more stealthier. She can parkour. I like that. Like, they both have weaknesses and strengths. But I'm still only going to play Nawe because I'm a stealth player. So I'm just going to do stealth. I'll just not enter, like, heavy combat unless it's, like, forced or something. I don't know.
That is. She's insanely fast on the ground. Definitely the fastest assassin
Speed.
we've seen running wise. So yeah, Basim's
Nice.
fastest assassin title is definitely out the window.
She's faster than Basim. That's huge. That's huge. Dude, Basim is supposed to be the fastest assassin. I mean, that's what they literally described him as. Because he was so fast. And what I think they meant by that was, like, because of assassin focus, like, he can stab between targets really, really fast. So he was the speed guy. But Nawe, you know, she's ninja. I mean, come on, let's be honest. She's ninja. She's supposed to be fast as fuck. That's right. You love to see it.
He can climb.
The characters play the same and now they made them play differently and people complain? I don't understand why people would complain about that at all. Like, honestly, and I'm just saying this, my perspective on this, it's totally fucking fine. Play the character you want. If you want a parkour in an Assassin's Creed game, play an assassin. You know who's an assassin? Nawe. She's an assassin. You know who's not an assassin? Yasuke. He's a samurai. It's literally fucking... It's that simple. The samurai is not supposed to be able to parkour. It's just... He's just not supposed to. So just play to what you like. You want to play combat, a big heavy man, play Yasuke. He does that. He's good at combat. So it really is just playstyle. Like, what do you prefer to do? I love my ninja. So I'm going to do ninja, so I'm just going to play him. How can people complain about that? Like, it's so obvious. Just pick your playstyle, right? Obviously, personally, if I had to make the final decision, I would never put Yasuke in this game as a playable character. I'd put him as a secondary character that's part of Nawe's lore. Like, he's there. But not to play as him. If it were me. Because this is Assassin's Creed. This is not Samurai's Creed. I don't want to be a samurai. I play Assassin's Creed for the stealth, for assassins, for the creed of assassins, to follow the tenets of the creed. Stay your blade from the flesh of the innocent, hide in plain sight, never compromise the brotherhood. That's what AC is about. Alright? I'm not a samurai. I'm an assassin. It's obvious. But obviously, with the introduction of the RPG trilogy, there's a lot of people that like the combat aspect of the game. So this game, they made Yasuke for that reason. They want the players for the RPG trilogy. You know, RPG trilogy is like AC Origins, Valhalla, etc., where it's like heavy, intensive combat. Okay, everyone knows this. If you played AC, you know this. Heavy, intensive combat. So they released Assassin's Creed Mirage. Why did they do Assassin's Creed Mirage? And heavy focus on stealth to bring back the OG stealth players that played this game from the start. That's what Basim does. He's supposed to be the stealthy guy. He's an assassin. Eivor is not the assassin. So you see what they're doing with this game is they're mixing it both. So if you want that, play that. If you want the stealth, play Nawe. I've never played Sekiro, by the way, no.
vertical walls very quickly, and she's capable of side and back checks. But again,
Yeah.
the environment doesn't really let her
God, I love her flips.
show her off much. There just isn't enough areas built for parkour in the traditional sense. She can also manually backflip descend, so that's not automatic, thankfully. She can do this pretty
I'm
cool
glad it's
backflip
not automatic. You get to fucking do it with style. W on that, Ubisoft.
project off a wall. So yeah, it's very hard to talk about parkour in a game like this because it's not the focus anymore. Honestly, if you want to
It's not the focus if you're playing him, I guess. But I mean, now it does parkour. I mean, like, parkour will always be a big part of AC. Always. It will always be.
more detailed breakdown of parkour mechanics for this game in a preview, then I'd recommend checking out Robotopoulos or Leo K's preview videos. They're way more in tune with every little parkour detail.
Oh,
But
yeah, Leo... Dude, let me tell you guys. If you guys know Leo.
Robotopoulos or Leo
Leo K. Rogue is one of the best Assassin's Creed players because he dives so deep into the parkour system. He's actually known for his parkour and stealth. He's really good. He's really good. He makes some fucking awesome content.
His preview videos. They're way more in tune with every little parkour detail.
He's so
From my
good at
perspective,
parkour.
as somebody that loves the SEO trilogy parkour, this is nowhere near
Yeah,
that
a lot of people love the SU trilogy. I love it as well. I really like Unity though.
level. And if I'm being completely honest with you, I do think the days of that style of parkour are long gone. Oh, and one thing that
Yeah,
really
they've never come
annoyed me
back.
was, remember the fall damage negation from Assassin's Creed Odyssey?
That's so stupid.
Yeah, it's back. There's an
No. Ninja fall. He can roll now negates all fall damage. Even if you jump from the highest mountain top. No, why? I understand it's a skill tree, but why? Like, I get it's ninja fall. It shouldn't be negates all fall damage. It should just be negates some damage. It shouldn't be all fall damage. I get what they're trying to do, though. It's like the ninja fantasy of, like, you know, parkour, but, like, realistically, you should take, like, maybe half damage at a certain height. That's sad to see, but it's fine, whatever. I guess I'll live with it. It's just, like, the problem I have with this, by the way, is it completely defeats the purpose of, like, jumping into a hay. Like, what's the point of jumping into a hay now when you can just fall on the ground and take no fucking damage? Like, the fun part about AC is, like, going on the very top of a building, going at the very top of a mountain, and then jumping into the hay under. And that's how you take no fall damage, is you land safely there. That was the cool part. But this completely defeats the purpose. It's like, why even have haze at that point? The haze at that point is just there if you don't have this passive. But when you unlock this passive, that's it. The hay bales are basically useless now. Yeah, it's like, I don't know, man. I watch him, Helgren. I watch him, by the way. I know about Stealth Games VR. He's sick. He has some really good footage, and he makes it look so cool. Especially for Dishonored. He really cooks on that game.
ability that lets Naui completely negate fall damage, and I hated it. It ruins the immersion.
It ruins the immersion, and it destroys the purpose of the design of the game. Because a lot of its design is to live that assassin fantasy and being able to jump into hay bales and stuff.
Realism and the whole assassin fantasy vibe going
Yeah,
on. So yeah,
exactly.
As a combat, stealth and parkour is definitely the weakest link here. It's functional, don't get me wrong, but it's just not the same anymore.
Yeah, I don't. That fall damage part alone really fucks it up. I really hope they revert that and they listen to the community and just literally delete that passive. There's still time. The game's not out yet. Like, they need to either completely remove it or nerf it. Make it so you take half damage at a certain height. Like, you take less damage. That's completely understandable. You're a ninja. You take less damage if you fall from somewhere high. But 0 fall damage? Nah, I'm good.
I want to touch on the season system, because even though this was just one region we were able to play in,
Oh, yeah.
I did notice that when I opened the map whilst exploring, the option to change season was available to me. And when I did, it played this kind of environmental cutscene, and then it changed season. Now, seeing as this is definitely not a late game thing because of where the preview takes us after the prologue, it does appear that you can change seasons on the go. And I
Cool.
am not a fan of this at all, because that's
It's kind of interesting because certain seasons will have, like, different ways of using stealth. I'm surprised they made it an option to manually do it, though. Like, it should be with the flow of the game, you know what I mean? I get what they're trying to do, because with seasons, you have different approaches to stealth. Like, if it's snowing, you can use the snow differently than, you know, than in, like, when it's sunny.
Defeats the whole purpose of a season system. If we have the power to change from autumn to winter and so on,
Yeah, you shouldn't be able to do that.
then that just breaks the flow of the game. Personally, this should have been a late game thing, and only available after you have finished the game.
They should revert that also. Like, they need, right now what Ubisoft needs to do is take all this feedback and just revert it. They still have time. They can still do this.
And not available to you near the start of the game. But again, as I've said many times, I played a 4-hour preview where a lot of things were unlocked to me. So maybe this season...
Maybe they did that specifically for like the early access, you know, because he's testing the game out. Maybe they just like, yeah, let's put that as an option for him. Maybe. And it's not in the actual game. Maybe that's true.
The system was unlocked to me as well. And perhaps this is a late game thing that the developers threw into this preview for us to try.
Yeah, maybe they just wanted you to see
Now,
like
the last
how
thing I want to touch upon is
season
the
look.
loading screen. So if you recall games like Assassin's Creed Origins, Valhalla and Mirage, you're able to walk around in the loading screen. Well, the same
Always.
goes for Shadows. Of course, in
Hey, that looks cool. Mirage looks so cool. Mirage had the coolest loading screen because like you have these shadows, and it makes sense with his character because he has like the djinn. The djinn is like tormenting him. Like it just makes perfect sense that the shadows would appear like this. That was such a cool loading screen for Boston. I love that.
those are the games you had kind of an anime simulation of what's going on based on the game. And for Shadows, it's
That looks really beautiful. You have the trees and
quite strange. And I'm not sure how I feel about it. It's pretty much like sakura trees or some kind of trees just there with distant mountains in the back. I mean, it does look very pretty, I won't lie. But if you're calling this game the next generation of Assassin's Creed, I would have preferred something different if I mean.
look, I'm gonna be honest, it looks fine, bro. Like, it's a loading screen. You're there for like 10 seconds and it looks fine. Like, it's better than just staring at a circle in the middle logo loading, you know? Like, this is, it looks nice. I like the trees. I like the look of it. It's fine, bro.
Being honest. Now, don't get me wrong, I do like the loading screens in those three games I mentioned, as they offer interactivity while waiting. But you know, I just don't know what I expected, to be honest. Maybe I'm just nitpicking at this point, but I am
A little bit. A little bit nitpicky. Honestly, it looked fine to me. Obviously, I think Mirage had probably one of the best loading screens because I really like the shadows. It perfectly fits him. Maybe there's a symbol in this game behind the sakura tree and why it like matters to her. Who knows?
I'm somebody that wants to see this franchise evolve in every aspect. So yeah, that's what the loading screen looks like for Assassin's Creed Shadows.
Looks good to me.
Now, I saved this part for
Animus
last
Hub.
because it's a big deal, and that is the Animus Hub. I've been so curious about this for a while, and I'm honestly surprised. We've speculated for so long about what it could be like, and now we finally know. If you don't know, the Animus Hub is basically the new modern day setup for the series. It's a launcher for the recent Assassin's Creed games, but it's way more than that. So now when you launch Assassin's Creed Shadows, this is what you'll be presented with. Memories, projects, exchange, and vault. Now, memories is another word for the launcher, and here is where we're going to boot up whatever Assassin's Creed game we want.
Ah, gotcha. Okay. So if you have like the other AC games. Okay. Oh, and there's a timeline and everything. Yeah, look. Shadows takes place in 1579 before Mirage. Valhalla takes here. That's cool. Yeah, that's cool. But yeah, that is if you own the other Assassin's Creed games. That's basically the menu now.
Well, at least that's what I thought. It turns out the Animus Hub only works with the newer games. So that means Origins, Odyssey, Valhalla, Mirage, and now Shadows.
Okay. It's not like Ezio and everything else. Okay. So it's only those games. Well, maybe they'll put Black Flag in there or something.
To say, it looks really well designed. Way better than I expected. It does
does
not feel
look cool.
half-baked. And
I like the picture in the middle showing.
Appreciate that. Now, projects are basically regular release gameplay missions for Assassin's Creed Shadows named Anomalies. Completing these gets you in-game rewards like new weapons, gear, data files, whatever that means, and keys. And those keys are for the next part. the Exchange. Now, the Exchange is kind of like your daily or weekly shop we've seen before, just like
right.
Raider's shop in Valhalla.
Yeah,
Here, you can trade
yeah.
keys for weapons, gear,
There's
mount
also an
cosmetics, and
Origins.
they've teased that there's more to come. Pretty straightforward. Now, the part that I'm the most excited about, the Vault. This is basically what the modern day story is going to become. They've hinted that there is a lot to explore here, especially if you're into the modern day side of the series like I am. It sounds like this is where we're going to get deeper story reveals, and I can't wait to see more of
Awesome.
what they have planned. They've said the Vault will evolve
That was a really
over
good video.
time, and there is still a lot we don't know about it.
That
Now,
was a
when
good
does
video.
this release? Well, the Animus Hub launches with Shadows, and it's set to grow over the next few months and even years. It's clear that this is the future of Assassin's Creed. I'm just
Sweet, bro.